Okay, I'd like to call to order our workshop and meeting for September 14th and ask the clerk, Chris Sampson, to call the roll.
Councilwoman Charles. Councilman Deputy Supervisor Withers.
Present.
Councilman Ullman.
Here.
Supervisor St. Lawrence.
Here. I'd like to ask Deputy Supervisor Withers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have our regular agenda, and then we have some public hearings that will start at 8 o'clock, but we will start right off. Since it's a workshop, we'll discuss some of these items, and council members may have questions, and then if it's not an item that we're going to hold over, then we'll vote on it.
Right.
Okay? Great.
So
So our town attorney, Michael Klein.
So we have four public hearings. The first of these is addressing,
First, before we do that, we should ask to do public participation. Anybody in the public who would like to speak? Seeing no hands, motion to close public participation by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, council?
we have four public hearings on this evening. The first of these are some technical amendments to the fire prevention chapter of the Town of Arapahoe Code. Basically, there are a couple of minor changes which were requested by the New York State Department of State, so the fire chapter comes into compliance with the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. Again, the changes are very minor and they're technical in nature. That one we can discuss, open up the hearing, close the public hearing, and we can adopt the changes. The second public hearing involves changes to the zoning law. These also were requested by the New York State Department of State. This will put the zoning law into compliance with the state code and also the New York Energy Conservation Code. We will open the hearing, but we have to adjourn it because the 30-day period for the county to comment has not expired yet.
Okay, so the 8:02 public hearing, we'll open it, and then we will adjourn it and leave it open.
That's correct.
And people could still make comments or anything.
Yep, and the 30 days will go into October, so we can't even add it for the meeting for the last meeting of the month. The third public hearing addresses the solid waste management law. This has three changes to the existing law, one involving the insurance requirements, and another one involving the procedures and the basis for denying or
Granting.
or canceling a license for a carter. So these were drafted by Beth in my office, and again, they're mostly procedural and technical in nature. And finally, we have a local law which will enable the town, when it ultimately adopts a budget, to override the tax cap.
Should the town want to?
Should the town
Should
want
the
to?
town want to. And it doesn't indicate that the town has to, it doesn't indicate the amount of the override, it just indicates we're permitted to do that. We also have, let's see, two agreements for approval. One of these is an extension of the existing contract with New York State for snow and ice removal. This goes through 2016. Another one is to retain.
Is that the same price we paying monthly?
I think it is. The state dictates it. We don't really have an ability to negotiate.
Linda, we're almost done.
Did you win? That's fine. But no matter what, we should welcome.
Find out soon on Twitter.
Yeah.
I hope she wins. I hope she wins. Hey, Pat, the show doesn't start till 9, so you won't even know till like 11.
When are they actually filming it tonight, or is it already done?
No, it's live.
No, it's live. I voted.
It'll go 10 times.
I voted 10 times.
I think she's gonna win. Man. She has a good chance.
We find out. Yeah, I got you.
And we have two other resolutions. One retains an expert for a personal injury case to give a report regarding a surface where a person tripped and fell. Cost of this will be split with the other co-defendants.
Should we vote on these? Can we vote on these as we're going through? If there are ones that we don't have any other questions on?
Mr. Clerk,
So
do you have
for-
a problem with that?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Concur.
So,
How is this known as?
The snow and ice moved by Councilman Ullman, second by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
Give me a second.
Okay. That was Ullman, Withers.
not to exceed $10,000. So there's a blank in the resolution, we should include that. So again, this is for an engineering expert to assist us in the defense of this litigation.
Why is Tilcon being sued? The road?
Yes. We're-
That's 1A2, correct?
Correct.
Okay, moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
And the last one is the settlement of a sewer backup. This is a claim brought by Erie Insurance, and the amount of the claim, which we've agreed to pay, is a little over $29,000.
And Supervisor, if we would take our engineering department and have them focus on the sewer backups and stuff, we would saving a couple $100,000 a year that we pay for backups.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had requested from the sewer department a map that shows the most vulnerable, low-lying areas that have the most acceptable to flooding or backups, and those areas, we should go in and we should put in check valves. And I still haven't received that map, so would you put that on your...
But
So,
also,
and-
the attorney, Michael, you told me that if we have a plan in place, we don't have to pay for any backups.
Right now, since we do not do periodic, regular inspections, we become a guarantor for the whole system. So no matter what happens and what the cause is, if it's in our lawn, we're responsible. If we had a regular system of inspection, which would be supervised by the Department of Public Works, then we would have to be held negligent before we can be found liable. So it would change the whole liability posture.
I would
Very
say,
good point.
roughly, just guessing based on the amount of resolutions, probably between $150,000 and $200,000
Yeah.
a year that we pay on backups.
Because some of them are very large, and...
This is $30,000 right now.
Yeah. Okay. I will not only request that map again, but we will start to put a plan in place with the DPW to take away that liability, the ultimate liability, or reduce our liability. We still could be liable, but if we have a plan in place, we'll have less liability.
I'll run it by the UN for them.
Yes.
Make sure it's okay.
That's me.
I have one item that's not on the agenda. It was actually...
Can we, I'm
Sure.
sorry, can I just for disclosure purposes on the settlement?
Yes.
I just recognize that I actually am a customer of Erie Insurance, and...
So why don't we, you want to abstain, and we will revote?
I'll abstain
And-
on that one.
Okay, so the 1A2 will be moved by Councilwoman Charles.
I think you already did that.
We're redoing it because he
Oh, this is, B is the one he's interested in.
oh, on this one, on
Yes.
this one. Oh, okay, okay. We didn't vote on it yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought we did.
On the Erie Insurance,
Right.
okay.
So, I would-
So,
I would-
move, so the 1B is going to be moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman, and all those in favor say aye, with one abstention. So Deputy Supervisor Withers abstains, and it's a 3-0 vote.
I thought you said you stuffed the toilet there or something, so you can't pay.
You never know what people say.
Mr. Supervisor, at
Yes.
the last meeting, there was a resolution which was tabled. It involved using a company to do data storage.
Did you get the information that you needed from?
Yes, and I spoke
Okay.
to Councilman Withers.
Moved by, you want to move it then, Pat?
I'll move it.
Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
Is this going to be new business or?
That will be 1B2, all right? Would that be good, or
1C?
1C, yes.
Me.
Withers, seconded.
By Ullman. Okay. Purchasing. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Okay. Moved by? Ullman, second by Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
Mona, you got a couple of proposals? I remember the previous chief wasn't happy with all the cleaners and, yeah.
Extension of the grinder pump is an accessory, is also an extension.
Okay, moved by Alman, seconded by Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
The first item has to do with various roads. These were both bids, we're looking to accept is the, for a general purpose, meaning they're not specific roads.
Well, they're separate. We'll vote on B1, and on B2, we'll table until he gets a list of the
Is
roads.
this authorizing money to do it, or is this just accepting a bid should we decide to do it?
Correct, in other words, that's what I was going to explain to you, that tell me not to do any purchase orders without your approval.
Well, I'm telling you that, not to do any.
Then when we do 2, we'll put that in there, all right?
No, we have to put it in there, I trust Mona, but Mona, so basically we're voting at the, how much it's gonna cost us, but any road that needs to be done is gonna come back to the town board first. Mona, believe is not good, I need to know certain.
It's up to us, and that's the way you want it.
I don't
that's
want
the way
any
it will be.
road to be able to be done without
Unless
the
you
town board's
see,
input.
unless the town board sees which roads.
Prior.
Prior. Okay. The town board is the appropriating body, and it's only appropriate that they know when they're appropriating money, what road is it going to, and if it is a priority of the town board to do that road. Moved by Alman, seconded by
Excuse me.
Deputy Supervisor Withers. This is B1, acceptance of the bid for the bituminous concrete.
I'm sorry.
And B2, acceptance of the bid for reclamation of various roads.
It would actually sound better if you did Charles first, it'd be Charles Ullman, sounds like a name. Charles is not coming.
Moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. Charles Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
I have one new business with it, and this has to do with the sewer on Maple. Care of the board had said that.
Is this the one that's behind the
It's in
yeshiva
front
there?
of the Muncie Jewish Center, the Yeshiva Spring Valley property.
Correct, and we previously discussed it, the idea was that, how to get accomplished. Previously, you've done something similar to this, 2010, by, Apple Management, by the Capital One Bank.
On Remsen Ave. We had them do the work and we reimbursed.
That's correct, you'll see that, it's all subject to the agreement with the contract, attorney's office, I discussed it with my client.
The contractor was Zugabe on this job.
And Civil Tech was engineering, and James, all part of our capital projects out of Source.
Who's Rampo Improvement LLC?
Earl Carney.
Who? Is that what do they do?
They're the builders. We told them, we asked the builders, since we wanted the sewer line improved, that we wanted them to do it, and that said they could do a cheaper, Pat, than us doing it.
It's not on their property.
Where's the I'm sorry. Where's the property?
It is right in the back parking lot of the Yeshiva Spring Valley on Maple and 306. The old Yeshiva Spring Valley. Visionits. Yep.
And it
Right
was all-
along the stream there. Go ahead, Michael.
It was our line, we're responsible for the improvement, our master plan and our zoning permitted developments to come above that, and they were held up because of the inadequacy of the sewer line in that area. We had tried to get a number of the developers to get together and contribute to it, but ultimately, it's our line, our responsibility. It approved zoning changes that anticipated adequate sewer flow. So this was the quickest way to get it done at the cheapest.
I'm sorry, just getting old, I'm forgetting. I thought we had arrangement with this Ramapo improvement. We're doing it now? I thought we were
No,
gonna-
No, they were going to do it with a
We-
group of the other builders, and they did the hiring, and we got the savings of them doing all of that. Oh, Mike,
So we to do it? This is what the resolution is.
Yeah.
The 88,000. What are they
We're not
doing?
paying some.
What are we paying?
We're reimbursing the developer for a portion of the project.
It's our sewer line. Really, you know,
Right, but when we're doing it so specific, I guess, what happens now if we didn't pay prevailing wages or whatever?
We don't have any contract privity with Zugby. Contract was with, the developer improved our sewer line, benefits our residents. It also benefits the developers who are above that. That's part of the reason they, encouraged us to do that. But we were the ones responsible, and we're paying the cost that we would have otherwise paid, but actually.
I'm just curious, why couldn't we have gone out to bid with Zigby ourselves and just paid Zigby directly the same amount?
Can we table this until we speak to Ted? I mean, Ted should be here.
I remember we discussed it,
We
just
discussed it.
something is, I don't know.
Correct. We paid for.
Why couldn't we go out with the proposal itself and see what it would have costed?
it was a timing and a cost factor.
I said, maybe we could just have the contract directly with Zigby and Jimmy's Fence. So I don't know. Why are we doing it through?
This is done already?
Yeah.
Well, there's a problem. I don't remember this.
It was about,
Yeah, no, Ted came in with Mike and discussed it.
We had proposed that we would contribute X dollars, materials and other things, project. Developer said, I can get it done a lot quicker than you can. Through that, I'll do it in your.
Doesn't give an appearance.
Well, I believe they were paid prevailing wages anyways.
It doesn't
So,
look like an engineer come and say, hey, look, you
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we ask some of those questions and
we'll
we'll
put it on, we can
And
tell,
we'll
we
do it
have a
till the
meeting,
next
I
meeting.
think, on
all
the
right?
28th.
Pat
or
wanted
9th.
to table it, so we table it. Okay, Parks and Recreations, is that it?
yep, $5,000, one for one, $43. To hear back, Unicity, which has been, we have on the update on the system and it's here. We have a meeting scheduled for Friday. Today, was the last day for anybody to go to ACT grant, which will give us crosswalks, sidewalks, there's up to $5 million per project. We actually, I went today so that we're allowed to apply for this grant. We have months to get a grant to do that, and
I thought Clarkstown was awarded over half. Clarkstown. For grants for, I think, historical housing.
that was the last go around. We're about to do it now.
Not to go off topic, but.
No, go ahead.
You finished?
Yes.
The property, the Muncie Center that we have, court now,
Yes.
the people living there vacated to me.
People that lived in that house?
They don't live there anymore, the house is abandoned. I told Michelle to cut the grass and the windows are broken. Now is a good time to quickly bulldoze it before they try to reestablish the facts. They put a note on the door. They left a nice note on the door.
Is it a squatter's house like that?
That guy that's been living there for 40 years, I think he,
$1,000.
so he put up a sign on the door, basically, we love the house, so hopefully people will leave it for us when we come back, or something like that. The house is abandoned, there's nothing inside. The windows are broken already. I think maybe we should look into the
Yes,
legality of
yes.
bulldozing just flatly before anyone realizes.
Should we ask Mr. Sullivan to take a look at the house?
Yes.
No, but you need the legalities if we're allowed to do it.
Well, we're allowed to do it, but first we have to do an asbestos study on it, make sure the asbestos is done properly. We have to go to Orange and Rockland and get the utilities cut, the water cut, and then we can do it. But we could do a resolution that says we want to take it down right now.
Do we need a
Is the
resolution?
flags, could you take that? The American flag.
Michelle said-
I mean, if it's an eyesore, it's an eyesore, right?
There's
So,
broken windows, there's a lot of teenagers that walk in that area, it's gonna become problematic.
So why don't we
If
make-
it's an attractive nuisance, then
Can we make a resolution right now
Why should the resolution?
because we may, do we need to, Michael? Or we could just
Well,
have our
I
guys
mean,
take
if
it
our
down?
guys are going to do it, then we can
Okay,
just
all
authorize it.
right.
Tom,
We-
could you just verify 100% that it's empty, there's no problems? I'll go there tomorrow. Michelle took some pictures for me, it looks quite empty, and they cut the grass there and stuff, but it
But if it's going to be a nuisance like that, we should take it down.
helps us.
Yep.
We decide.
Okay, we have an authorization for the Challenger Center for the conference that they went to in Framingham, Massachusetts. I don't know if he beamed there or if he took the shuttle, but moved by Charles, seconded by Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. The next item is the general matters 4A, approval of the encroachment into the sewer easement 5 on 51 on Pomona Road.
We tabled that from the last
Right.
meeting. I don't know if there's anything new, and I think Ted is away this week.
Well, we want to give the relief to the people, right?
I spoke to Ted.
the person that-
Yeah, yeah. I spoke to Ted. I was confident that there's a hardship caused not by his, look, he did put the extension in, he did follow all the rules and requirements for Wesley Hills.
But Wesley Hills didn't do the proper
They didn't do
procedure.
the proper procedure and all that stuff. And he, I agree with Councilman Ullman that we put the stipulation on the deed, if that's okay with council.
Yep.
And we'll go from there.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
And then maybe we could just change the resolution that the Village of West Hills didn't notify.
I could change the wherefore clause to put something.
4B, authorization for preparation of map plan report extension of the Round Post Sewer District. This is in the Slotsburg area.
Withers?
Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Item 4C, amendment of a resolution number 2016-412, the IAAO course canceled in White River Junction, Vermont, rescheduled for Oneonta, New York on September 16th.
Deonta?
Second,
Schenectady.
Schenectady, thank you. Davies?
Well, it was done before.
Oh, this is just to accept the audit. That's it.
So each year, we're required, the Justice Court is required to have an audit conducted of its finances.
Sorry, did you do 4C?
Did we vote on it? No. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Okay, thank you.
So the new business item, each year, the Justice Court is required by state law to have an audit of its finances done. We had retained our prior auditors to do that. They completed it before we terminated our relationship with them. This is simply the acceptance of their audit of the Justice Court.
I'm going to vote no. I don't trust the work that they conducted for this town. I'll leave it with that. I don't believe in the product that they do for us, or did for us, and I am voting no.
All right. So,
Alan Simon was a big hitter, he brought him.
yeah. Okay, moved by Ullman, second by Charles, and all those in favor is 3 and 1 no. I don't think we have any other business except, could we do, one second, Linda. Can we do the one hearing that we're going to adjourn now? Or is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Linda, you had to go?
I just want to discuss something also in executive session on contract and litigation.
Okay, motion to go into executive
Yes.
session by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Cancel the meeting for... No. We want to cancel the meeting, 5B, we're canceling the October 12th meeting.
Moved Aye.
All in favor, say aye. Okay, we're at the portion of this meeting tonight where we have public hearings. And we will start with we've done the rest of the agenda. And we will start with the public hearing, the 8:01.
We actually have to wait to 8:01.
What time is it? What time do you have?
I have a minute too.
Oh, okay, we'll wait 2 minutes. And I do want to let people know that the town is going to have a celebration for Grace Vanderwall, whether she wins or loses tonight, and we're going to try to coordinate it either tomorrow or the next day, or sometime this weekend with some of our events, but we're going to have a celebration for Grace Vanderwall and her efforts on the America's Got Talent competition. I got my, I'll see, yeah.
Maybe you want to bring a desktop.
Okay, it is now 8:01, and we will have our first item on the public hearing agenda, the amendment of the fire prevention chapter of the Ramapo Town Code, and I will ask our town council, Michael Klein, our town attorney, to state if we have all the publications out.
Yes, we should begin by reading the notice of public hearing into the record. The notice reads as follows. Notice is hereby given by the Town Board of the Town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held at 8:01 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall, 237 Route 59, Suffolk, New York, 10901, on the 14th day of September, 2016, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Local Law Number 6-1997, the Fire Prevention Chapter of the Ramapo Town Code, as amended to revise various sections concerning the applicability of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. Notice is hereby further given that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard. We will deem as exhibits for the purposes of the public hearing, number 1, the text of the proposed changes to the Fire Prevention Chapter. Exhibit 2 will be an affidavit of posting. Exhibit 3, an affidavit of publication. And number 4 will be the environmental assessment form pursuant to SECA. As an initial statement, I'd like to note that the New York State Department of State has suggested that the town make certain technical changes to the Fire Prevention Chapter of the Ramapo Town Code to conform with the requirements of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. These changes are to, number 1, Section 144-3, to eliminate any waivers of non-compliant conditions, and number 2, to Section 144-12, to require fire chiefs to notify the town of fires or explosions involving structural damage. With that information, Mr. Supervisor, we're able to now open the public hearing for public comment.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Anybody like to speak, raise your hand. Come right up, state your name and your address.
Yes, it's Bruce Levine, 9 Robin Hood Road, Montebello, New York, 10901. And I'm making one comment. I really have no objection to any of these laws. I do have an objection to form. My concern about it is that normally when you're amending a law, you would have language that's being deleted would be half line or in the middle of the letter crossouts, added line, new language would be underlined, and as such, a citizen like me who saw this on the agenda and asked and got somebody to get me copies of the law, I looked at it and I said, I have no idea what they're doing. Why do I not know what you're doing? Because I can't tell what's going out and what's going in. But I do understand that these are these are changes made by recommended by the Department of State, and I have no doubt they're valuable and appropriate. So I'm not opposed to those changes, but you should, at least in future, follow that procedure. That was always the procedure I followed when I was legislative counsel or even a county legislator writing my own laws in the county or in the village, so that you could see what was being changed, unless, of course, you were creating an entirely new law. That would be, of course, obviously different. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Come right up.
I gotta figure out how to skip around. Hi, this is Deborah Munitz. I'll wait for Mr. Ullman to be available.
I'm sorry, Deborah, not to interrupt you, Bruce. When we passed this resolution to make a public hearing, we did request that the supervisor did request that it should be laid out that way. I don't know where the gap happened, that it didn't happen, but you are correct. We did request that it should. Usually they do bold and or whatever that they're taking in or out or red, and for some reason it didn't happen. But the supervisor did request that at the last meeting. I know he could speak for himself, but I remember that.
Is this something, Mr. Counsel, that we will be posting on our website or under the new?
Well, if the board adopts the proposed changes tonight, that will become on our website as part of the town code.
So maybe we could go with the supervisor's initial request, put it on the website, ask the IT to put that on the website, and do what the initial request from the supervisor was to show those differences.
Yes, we can certainly do that. I'd also point out that the 2 changes to the fire prevention chapter, there are no insertions or deletions. These are complete changes to those sections. So the text that was distributed is the complete new version.
Yeah, but I do recall the supervisor specifically asking that. Chairman, Mr. Levine, I do recall as well, the Supervisor St. Lawrence, specifically asking for what you actually just stated.
And part of what we want to do because there's no changes other than the minute things that the state is requesting.
Right, I do understand that, and it really, what I saw on the website was only the notices of the public hearing, which I do appreciate. That's excellent. And when I think my friend here foiled the local law, the laws, that's what all we got was the straight copy. Actually looked at it tonight to double check, because I remember that's what struck me when I first looked at it. So as I said, no problem with the laws, just, the
form.
supervisor
We
is
got it.
right, supervisor was right, and will be right in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Hi, this is Deborah Munitz, 5 Rose Hill Road, Suffern. So I want to reiterate the comments that were made by Mr. Levine. I actually did attempt to go through the various changes. The fire code is the shorter one, I believe, and it seemed a lot more straightforward. However, I put together one document that I'll give you a copy of, and overall, I'm asking that the public hearings remain open so that we have an opportunity to obtain the red line versions of the proposed changes. I'd like to know if there was the equivalent of an internal review, like a CDRC review, on the impact of these changes, because it would make sense to be able to see the comments. I know that there wasn't a CDRC meeting, but I don't know if there was some other venue in which you guys actually reviewed all of these details. And if there are internal comments from like the building inspector or the fire inspector or, Department of, Public Works or anything, that would be appropriate. I was hoping, and I'm sorry I didn't get here earlier, I was hoping to find out if there was any county GML with comments related to these changes available. I didn't hear that there was, and if there is, I certainly would want the opportunity to see that.
I will say this, I don't mean to interrupt you, but for the second public hearing that we have, which is on the amendment on the zoning, there is a GML that we have not received, so we will be opening that meeting and adjourning that.
And leaving that
until-
one open.
So we'll keep that one open.
And that's
Yeah.
good, because that's actually has a lot more of the concerns. And then, I guess the biggest concern that I had with respect to the fire safety one is that a lot of these concerns were driven by the fire companies, and I had polled various fire companies, Hillcrest, Spring Valley, things like that, even, Gordon Wren, and nobody has seen this. And I know that this is being driven by the Department of State, but I think that the Department of State, was responding to a lot of their concerns. And I think it's really just, I would feel better myself as a resident of the town of Rampo, just, if we're going to fix things, let's fix things and just, take a moment, take a week or two, leave them both open and ask that the fire companies at least, feel good about it, because I know that would make me feel more confident about that. I'm going to submit a document that has both of these. I can do it now, I can do it later, but I'll come back and speak the rest of my comments on the other one.
Okay.
Michael dictated
Yeah.
the changes.
Correct.
Tracy would have objected to that. I hate to use the word too bad, we have to do.
Well, I should point out, in response to a question from Mr. Ullman, the changes that, particularly this law, were drafted by my office in conjunction with the building department. So we met, we discussed the changes that were necessary, and this is the consequence of that meeting.
Okay. And, Rudy, did you want to speak on this, or no? Oh, okay.
I mean,
We could leave it open, we could leave this open
Right.
until the next meeting, correct?
I don't have a problem with
We-
with both requests to leave them open if there's no.
Can we get it changed, not changed, but the correct layout so that,
The red line.
I don't want to
is-
change it
Yeah,
because
I-
we have to do a whole new everything, but just to redline it, and thanks for teaching me a new term,
Right.
redline.
Yeah.
And redline it and get it proper.
We could certainly do that. The thing is, the changes on this law are so obvious and de minimis, I don't know what purpose would be served by not
Well, that's.
moving
the-
forward,
the
but
purpose
there's
is-
no,
Michael,
but there's
to
no,
make the residents happy. Our
Okay.
the citizens are constituents, they're requesting something, let's do it.
The purpose is, it was requested, and I don't see any harm leaving it open, so.
So we could leave the meeting open until the next meeting, which would be the police meeting, and that'd be like 8 days from now, I think, so.
well, the only question, do you want to leave this hearing and the next one on for the same date or not? Because the next meeting will not be, we may not have the results from the comments from the county planning department by the end of this month. So that means we'd have to leave it open through, to
So why
sometime in
don't we leave-
October.
Why don't we leave this meeting open until our next meeting, which is a police matters meeting? And, well, first we'll close, we'll adjourn the meeting, but Rudy, do you want to speak to this issue, or?
Just one question.
Yeah.
Did Gordon Wren approve of and agree with the changes?
I don't know if he made any statement on it, Rudy, but we certainly will,
The changes were requested by the New York State Department of State. That's
and
the
we did send it
genesis
to
of
the New
these
York State
changes.
Department of State, the changes, so.
Ask one more question.
Sure.
Did the Department of State approve all the changes?
They pretty much dictated to us.
They told us what needed to be changed. We sent them drafts of what we were changing, and they haven't responded.
And so what we'll do is we'll leave this, we will adjourn this public hearing until the meeting on the fourth Thursday of this month, and that will give people time to get the information. Do we need a motion to adjourn the?
We do.
Okay, a motion we don't need to do the secret then on this until we?
Until we're
actually-
gonna- until
Okay.
the next meeting.
So motion to adjourn this hearing until September, rest the date is?
Right.
22nd?
No, it's not, it's the,
Thursday, right?
No, Thursday after.
I believe it was the 27th. I'm sorry, September 29th is the...
okay, so we'll adjourn this
At 10
public hearing until
10 a.m.
10 a.m. or 10:01 a.m. on September 29th. Moved by Charles, second by Omen. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
But I want to make it clear that the Attorney's Office is working side by side with the Department of State on this, and they do have the lead say on it, and we're following whatever they're requesting.
Great.
So,
Okay. The next item would be a public hearing, 8:02. Since it's after 8:02, we will open up the public hearing on the amendment of the zoning law, building, and construction code. Counsel?
Yes, the notice of public hearing reads as follows. Notice is hereby given by the Town Board of the Town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held at 8:02 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall, 237 Route 59, Suffolk, New York, 10901, on the 14th day of September, 2016, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Local Law Number 10-2004, Zoning, as amended to revise various sections concerning the applicability of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and the State Energy Conservation Construction Code. Notice is further given that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard. We'll deem into the record for purposes of this hearing, number one, a text of the proposed zoning law changes. Number two would be the affidavit of posting. Number three, the affidavit of publication. And number four, the environmental assessment form pursuant to SECA. By way of background, again, the New York State Department of State has suggested that the town make certain technical changes to the zoning law of the town of Ramapo to conform with the requirements of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and the New York State Energy Conservation Code. There are 15 sections in the zoning law which are to be amended accordingly. And again, while the hearing will commence tonight, since we have not received a report by the County Planning Department, it's incumbent on this board to adjourn this until after a 30-day period, so that will bring us into October. With that, we can open this public hearing for comment.
Okay, this public hearing is open. Anyone would like to speak, raise their hand. Bruce, come right up.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat myself. I just want to state that I believe Ramapo is a water sense community, right? You passed that, and I just wanted to alert you that the state, while they moved to change the energy code, energy conservation code, and the building code, they did not adopt changes to the plumbing code. But as you know, the municipalities have the right to strengthen those laws, but they must be approved by the Department of State, by whatever the appropriate plumbing board or whatever the process is. And I would urge you to do that, to require water sense fixtures, water sense rated fixtures, these are EPA conservation rated fixtures, to be put into any new housing, which, you know, most likely it is anyway, but also for any kind of substantial rehab. And actually, you guys should figure out what substantial rehab might be, how you'd want to define that. But I think it would be good for all of us and help us in getting real water conservation in the county. And that's my only comment. Again, this is the Department of State. We approve. I approve.
Thank you.
Hi, Deborah Munitz, 5 Rose Hill Road. Just for the record for this, since it's a separate part, I'd like to just reiterate my comments regarding the availability of red line versions, understanding whether there are any internal review documents, and that there should be adequate time for the public to have access to the county GML prior to the next public hearing in October, and that, you know, the question is whether or not there are any other review documents outstanding, particularly, again, from various Ramapo fire companies, since a lot of the building codes are to address those concerns. I actually suggest in my written comments that a full copy of the record of whatever comments there may be should be made available at the town clerk's office. It's very hard to keep submitting these sort of very broad FOIL requests, so it would be much easier if the public could have access and say, here's all the documents upon which you guys are basing your decisions. I started to review the actual changes, and these changes were actually far more, obviously there were many more of them, and they were far more substantial, and they seemed to actually go well beyond some of the requests from the Department of State. So this is obviously done in reaction to that, but there's a lot more going on. I will give just a couple examples of some of my comments, but obviously since this is going to be open, I don't need to chew your ears off, and I'll do a better job. What I would like to ask, if you can answer tonight, is there a way, if the public raises a question or concern or has a, why, like a why, or would like to go through some examples of, how these things play, will there be any kind of an avenue, or do we need to do that in the context of the public hearing? I think that one of the concerns that I have in general about changes to the town code is that the impact of the change, you have a stated intent, and then what ends up happening in practice sometimes falls very outside the stated intent. And so it's not always what's been added. I'm particularly concerned about some of the deletions that are reflected, which is one of the reasons why I think the red line is going to be particularly important. So for example, in Section 3, in the amendment of Section 376-142, the phrase at the end of the existing law saying, and other applicable laws, was dropped. I can't see any reason why it should have been dropped. I think that it's always, some of these catch-all phrases that we have should be maintained. I think that that would be a good example of something that should be reconsidered. Section 4, that's 376-144B. So instead of the more general and broader phrase, which are not structural in nature, the amendment includes 4 specific examples of structural types of changes. And the examples provide focus on removals, but not changes to or additions to. And I think that this change should absolutely be reviewed in more detail. So at a minimum, the law, I'm thinking, should remain worded as it is. Any change in the bulk of a building structure or non-building use, but not including ordinary repairs, which are not structural in nature. And then at the end of the sentence, the phrase, including but not limited to, should be considered, so that these 4 items that you guys have spelled out are examples and not the sum total of everything that this is meant to include. Under number 2, for instance, the phrase should be amended to read the removal, addition, or change to. Under number 3, same thing. What about an addition? What if there are building additions to add things like backup generators, sprinkler systems, things that are important and perhaps relate to either things that would cause a fire safety concern or are perhaps designed to address it. There are potential additions that might warrant building permits, so that appropriate reviews may take place. So I think that that's something that should be looked into further. Section 5, the application procedure. There's nothing in the proposed amendment that addresses the need to improve the ability of the town to share submitted information under FOIL with local residents. I've raised this before. At the last meeting before you guys, I reiterated that I had my comments and requests regarding the May 11th town board meeting, that changes should be made. And one of the things that I specifically had included in the list was a desire to amend some of our procedures to ask for the builders who are the people who are going to benefit from building permits, plans, things like that, to be forced to submit PDFs, because ultimately it's mere seconds. It's no cost to them. It's the same amount of time, in the time it takes to print a map, they could create a PDF, submit it to the department, make it easier for your internal distribution, and save considerable town resources in servicing the public's request and also interfacing with other interested and involved agencies like the fire departments and the whatnot. So I think that that's really important. If we're going to overhaul these things, I think we need to take a step and actually overhaul it. So I would like to see that in the application procedure. I've been advocating for that for a long time. In the interest of consistency for all applications and to help ensure that the developers bear the costs, the method for valuation listed in A1, I think that that's something I've heard come up a number of times. I think that's something that people have a concern about. If you're going to go back and dip into the code and do an overhaul, it shouldn't be, subject to only addressing the Department of States. I think that we need to deal with all of our financial issues here in the town of Rampo. And I know that you guys are trying to do more with less, but I think that if you have a means to fairly make sure that there is a fair and consistent implementation of building permit fees and valuations, I think that it's best to make sure that nobody is questioned regarding how you treat one versus another, and that would be a good thing for the town, and I think it could help raise revenue. Section 7, in the revocation section, in addition to adding the new paragraph F, I'm thinking the town board should consider changing the word may revoke to shall revoke or shall suspend. If the building department is in a position to be considering these things, the use of the word may in our town code, I think really needs to be reevaluated, particularly when it comes to issues of public health and safety. We need to strengthen our laws. So, why not revocate these things on a mandatory basis until things are cured or suspend them? Take the time to actually do a better job with our code. Section 8, request more time to review and availability. Red line, things got more and more complicated as I went through. I had said, I've already said these things, that the changes are not minor. There's actually a lot of changes. It's really been, you guys set this in the depths of summer, so you guys are going to adjourn it, and I think we need to make sure that we make sure, like, the fire companies chime in on this. Same thing, I don't know if this is related to the Department of State. I'd obviously like to see that they feel comfortable that this addresses all of their concerns. In the section 14 regarding complaints, you've amended it so that the procedure for reviewing and investigating complaints is limited solely to the complaints related to the administration of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code or the State Energy Code. While this is obviously you're trying to address the state's complaint, why on earth would we limit it to just those issues? The residents of Ramapo need and deserve the same avenue for complaint investigation and resolution for New York State laws and codes and town laws and codes, even if they don't relate specifically to these two specific code areas. If you're going to put in something to spell out a complaint procedure, let's make it have teeth and let's cover everything that the town would want covered. As far as section 15, the time frame for order to remedy, 30 days is a really long time. So unless there's some kind of a mandatory stop work order involved, you can do an awful lot of damage in 30 days. And then what ends up happening is, you've got developers who've spent all this money and then they're going to sit there and kind of convince you that you should just let them take a pass on it because they've already done something. The building inspector has determined that it's allowable and appropriate to segment building permits at this point. This is a new thing, into chunks of work that could take just days to do. Maybe a week or even just a couple days to do. So if there's a complaint regarding people overstepping building permits and residents are going to, complain and want action taken, how can you complain and then wait 30 days when someone's doing something, that they're going to, really destroy a neighborhood in a matter of a day or two? This is going on right now. I'm speaking from experience and real examples, and I think that this is also a section that needs to be revisited. So I think this is obviously a very serious and welcome overhaul of the town code, but it's imperative that a hard look be given. And I really believe that there should be some kind of meeting or something else where the public and interested parties can sit down and actually go through some examples and say, well, if we have this concern, how do these things address that concern? It would be really good to go through some kind of an example session and, see, whether, like, have we gone far enough? Does this achieve what we'd all like to see achieved? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak at this public hearing? A motion to adjourn this public hearing to a date in October, a date not yet set at this time, but a date that will be after we receive the GML review from the county planning. So that motion is moved by Charles, seconded by Omen. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Supervisor, that means we'll have to renotice the.
We will have to
meeting.
renotice when we finally do get that, but we are adjourning until after the time period where the county has to submit their GML review.
And
And
that-
we will renotice it.
Does that still give what Ms. Munitz just asked, does it give people a chance to still participate and give input to it?
Yeah, because they'll be able to.
We'll have to give a
at the
new
public
statutory
hearing.
notice, and we'll have to publish. So there is an expense to that again, too. I guess the problem that the public should know, because of various holidays in October, that's why the meeting schedule is a bit in flux, but the board
Yeah.
has to resolve those issues.
Okay.
Okay,
So it's being adjourned without date. We will renotice the date when the hearing
we'll
will be continued.
republish the
Okay.
material. Okay, the next public hearing, which was set for 8:03, which we're now at 8:30, it's amendment to the solid waste management law. And I'll now turn it over to our counsel, Michael Klein.
The notice of public hearing for this public hearing reads as follows. Notice is hereby given by the Town Board of the Town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held at 8:03 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall, 237 Route 59, Suffern, New York, 10901, on the 14th day of September 2016, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled, "A Local Law Amending Local Law Number 9, 1993, Solid Waste Management, as amended to revise various provisions regarding issuance of a license to collect solid waste." Notice is further given that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard. For purposes of this hearing, we will deem into the record, number one, the text of the proposed changes to the trash pickup law, number two, the affidavit of posting, number three, the affidavit of publication. The changes to the existing trash pickup law, or the solid waste law, are essentially the following. Number one, permit fees to be charged for an application in vehicle. Right now, there's an application fee. Most other municipalities also charge a vehicle fee, so this will permit the town to do that. Number two, it amends the insurance requirements by making a hauler's insurance to be what's called primary to the town. And number three, the law clarifies the reasons and process to deny or revoke a license. So with that, we can open up public hearing.
Okay, this public hearing is open. Anyone would like to speak on the amendment to the solid waste management law? Okay, motion to close the public hearing by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. And then under, do we need a sequel on this, Mike?
We do not.
Okay, then a motion to adopt? Moved by Councilman Charles, second by Councilman Omen. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Okay. The next public hearing is stated for 8:04. It's a local law allowing the town of Ramapo to override the levy limit established in the General Municipal Law 3-C. Counsel?
The notice of public hearing reads as follows. Notice is hereby given by the Town Board of the Town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held at 8:04 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall, 237 Route 59, Suffern, New York, 10901, on the 14th day of September 2016, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled, "A Local Law Allowing the Town of Ramapo to Override the Tax Levy Limit Established in the General Municipal Law 3-C." Notice is hereby further given that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard. We will deem into the record the text of the law as number one. Number two would be an affidavit of publication, and number three, an affidavit of posting.
Okay. Anyone who would like to speak? Come right up.
Robert Romanowski, 183 Maple Avenue, Muncie. When you raise taxes, what you are really saying is that I'm short of money, so I'm going to stick my hand in your pocket and take out some more of it. Things are with this raising the taxes. What about the seniors? The seniors can't get out of Ramapo fast enough because the high taxes. Ramapo has the third highest taxes in the nation. The only place with higher taxes is Westchester County and the county in California where Beverly Hills is located. Instead of raising taxes, what this board needs to do is to make some cuts. First of all, you spent $95,000 for a digital message board that's sitting out on the front lawn of Town Hall. This is such a fiscally stressed town. How can you spend money for things you don't have? You're spending money that you don't have. You're spending money beyond your means, which is part of the problem. Some things I could suggest the town to do to save money. There's a number of things. One thing you have two police liaisons. You have Israel Kahan and Juan Pablo Ramirez. Why are you paying Israel Kahan $12,000 a year for this job while Juan Pablo Ramirez is doing it for no fee? Money could be saved there. What about state advisors? I'm still waiting for them to appear at a Ramapo Town Board meeting to explain what they do for $60,000 a year. You also could do consolidation. You can do what Clarkstown did. You can put the receiver of taxes in the town clerk's office like Clarkstown did to save money. You can cut down on the number of town attorneys. Ramapo has 8, Clarkstown has 3. 8 years ago, when Elon Schoenberg left as finance director, Ramapo had an excellent bond rating and was not under the fiscal stress that it now is. Mr. St. Lawrence, what has happened over the last 8 years under your watch as finance director that has caused Ramapo to become the most fiscally stressed town in New York State? I have this email I received from Governor Cuomo. The title of it is Tax Cap, Working as Intended in New York. It says that Governor Cuomo is proud to introduce this tax cap and providing tax relief to hard-working New Yorkers, and that most municipalities are staying under the tax cap. It goes on to say that how proud the governor of this tax cap is of this tax cap, and this is being done to help struggling New Yorkers remain in New York. After reading this, I said, well, not in the town of Ramapo. You cannot correct something if you do not diagnose it properly, and you are not diagnosing this situation properly. You are treating this situation as though you have a revenue problem, when in fact, what you really have is a spending problem. Let's talk about the last financial burden that's been burdening the town for the last several years. That's the baseball stadium. I know when you had your radio program, you said there's a $25 million bond plus a $7 million loan from Providence Bank, and that the stadium cost $32 million. But what you didn't include in that is the additional $38 million in taxpayer money that was spent for all the other peripheral items that happened around the stadium. I have the figure because I have all the resolutions. I'd like to ask the question to this board: what made you feel it was quite all right to spend $38 million taxpayer money on a baseball stadium without even asking the taxpayers if it was all right? So before you raise taxes, this board needs to have a meeting and decide what cuts could be made. If you continue to raise taxes, you really all should be ashamed of yourself, because you're not diagnosing the problem properly. Tax increase is not the answer. Consolidations and fiscal cuts and elimination of wasteful spending are. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak?
Deborah Munitz, 5 Rose Hill Road, Suffern, New York. A couple of years ago, I came and I have the same questions. If you guys go and override this, what will the resulting tax be? I think that to ask the public to comment on this without really understanding, what the ramifications are is not appropriate. Even with the school bills, we know this is what it's going to be if you approve it, and, here's the safety net plan if you don't. You publish this in a way that I'm sure I could ask 100 friends, and not one of them would know that this was on the public hearing tonight, because you know what, I didn't even know. You guys publish these agendas the Friday before the meetings, and you do it in a way that is, if you said local law allowing town of Rampo to override the 2% limit, everybody would be out here tonight. So my question is, what happens if you don't? What happens, what is the impact? What are we giving up? There has to be a plan, because obviously this law has been in effect for a really long time, and you've had a long time to try and work within these limits. Why is it taking so long for us to try and accomplish what, other municipalities are doing? So I want to know, what's the impact? What are we talking about? What's the backup plan? And I also want to raise another issue, because I've been thinking about this, because I've run into some strange things where I'll see, I'll have questions on assessments. I would like to know from the town board, what is being done, what is done to actually go and manage the departments within the town. We have the assessor's office that drives our taxes. What are we doing, to go back and take a look at how all these reassessments are being made? I recently just saw someone asking for a reassessment. I was incredulous about it. It's dated the end of the summer. Are there areas that we could be doing a better job? And I'm not talking about like ice skating rinks and this and that and 12,000. I'm talking millions of dollars. Where could we be raising millions of dollars that you guys need to do a better job running this town? And the only two major sources of revenue I know are coming from the building department, okay, and from the assessor's office. What are you guys doing to make sure that every property that should be assessed is being assessed? I found a property that was absolutely missing from the town's database just last week. And I called and asked, and they're like, oh, well, it should have been this. And I said, well, if it's supposed to be with another property, why is that property so many acres and not these many acres? I don't know, it's probably okay. This is not an acceptable way to run the town. I raised the issue earlier of valuations. Somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm going to do a project. That's $12,000. Is it? How do you know? Okay, you've got a thing, $100 a square foot valuation, when everyone's selling their homes based upon $200 square foot valuations? Why are we still at some, that's a gift to every Tom, Dick, and Harry developer, and we're facing issues with, we're really stressed on our overdevelopment now. If we're going to stress out and have to have engineers and do all the rest that we need, and more people to staff in Mally's department to make sure that all this stuff is happening, and we're going to put in new procedures to deal with complaints finally in a successful way, well, you know what? It should be funded. And I'm not talking about soaking it to everybody. I'm talking about modest changes to your ways in which you charge the people who are causing the stress in our community, so that they're the ones making the money, okay? They're making all the money based upon the workload that you guys are absorbing. I don't come in here and cause you workload other than me trying to deal with the stresses from somewhere else. Okay, I pay my taxes, I pay it on time, I have a bank.
Just want to make one point, because you're saying something that is just not true. And that is, none of your taxes, you live in the village of Montebello, go to the building department.
No,
Or
of
if it-
course, no,
it's a
I'm not saying
separate
that.
fund, it's a B fund, okay.
I'm not saying that. But my home value is affected by the development that's going on, okay? When there are schools, my school taxes, which is the biggest part of my tax bill, is very much affected by how development takes place within my community. And whether 250 kids are shoved on less than an acre, you know, in a space that maybe should be 50 kids, okay? It does impact me, okay? There is an engine that is driving the economy of Ramapo. And the truth is, you guys need to be doing a better job taxing that engine and not me. And I want to know what you guys are doing about it, because before you come to me hat in hand, I'd like to know that you're actually doing something, you know, to at least make sure that all of the costs are laid out where they should be, and that the impacts that I'm seeing are being addressed.
Okay, and I would direct you to look at the assessment that's published for each village, and you can see what areas are going up in assessment, where are going down, and you'd answer
I
some of your
understand,
questions.
but as you can appreciate, and I just saw someone asking for a new assessment from the village of Vermont, okay? And those assessments come to the town of Ramapo, okay? They don't go to the village of Vermont. And when someone's got their home on the market saying, oh, I want to sell it for this amount, and they're telling you that that home is worth 33% less at the same time within the same month, there's a problem with the system in place. And I think there's an opportunity for you guys to do a better job for all of us.
I just have to say to you that this town was just given awards for working so hard to teach people how they could do their assessment, how they could aggrieve their assessment. We set up computers, we teach people, they can come in, we give them the comps in their area, we teach people how they can reduce their taxes and have it be done properly. And our assessor's office does a great job all the time.
People are taking well advantage of it, and the question is, now that we've taught everyone how to do this so well, is what they're asking for, it may be legal, but is it fair?
Thank you. Mr. Dent?
Rudy Dent, 8 Red Oak Lane. I'd like to add on to the issues that have been discussed here. From the start, I'm not going to pretend that I believe that everything here in Ramapo is handled on an evil keel. As for Israel Kahan and the Haverim thing, where he, as a civilian, has the code to enter the police headquarters areas, I think that's a disgrace. And also, their performance speaks for itself. I believe they just lost the case for several $100,000. I was also aware of all the illegal acts that were taken by a certain judge to get the case in order to try to dismiss it. And I had that from the top levels. So the level of hypocrisy in this town is just mind-boggling. But I'm grateful for the education. It has really opened my eyes. Again, I would like to see that abolished. There's no reason for that, and it's a thumb in the eye of every police officer who's out there doing the job and capable of doing the job. There is no reason for that to exist, and especially on our dime. The mismanagement of our taxes impacts the value of our investments, the quality of life, and the standard of living of every individual in the town of Ramapo. I'm not even going to talk about what's going on in our schools, nor of the numerous times that I've seen police officers standing around twiddling their thumbs because they didn't know what to do in a given situation that would put them in a position of possibly liability or disapproval from the top command. That happens to be yourself. You are the police commissioner, am I correct? You're the commissioner?
I'm one of the police commissioners, yes.
Yes. All right, so, you know, it starts with you. So I would suggest you get rid of that. As for the ambulance corps, I've spoken with members of the Hasidic community who want to serve, who are qualified to serve in that volunteer service. And there is absolutely no transparency in the money that is allotted to that organization. And they have shown that they're not capable of responding with a full force when they are funded to provide at least 4 bays to respond. And they can't even come up with one fully prepared response. And from what I understand, there have been numerous situations where they've had to call in for additional help. So where's that money going? Also, they've complained that they don't have a charter. They've been given nothing but excuses about the charter is in transition, and as soon as it's done, it will be made available. So that's being run in a dictatorial manner, and I hope the financial person takes a good look into that. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
You know, it's an absolute disgrace. It really is. And you know, for one thing, I'm past anger. I'm actually grateful for what I've learned here, because it's enabled me to reach several authors and also politicians and over 2 million people. And I believe the tide will come, and I believe that what has occurred here in this town will come to an end. We also have a case of major blockbusting operations going on as normal business, not to mention the hypocrisy and the double standard when it comes to the law. So these are things that have to be acknowledged and dealt with. And I think as people wake up and become aware, they will make their wishes forceful, and they will start the pendulum to swing in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Councilman Ullman, second by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. On the main motion, moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. We're adjourned.